is the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show.
Road wins. The Bison are back in the Dome wearing brand new, very sweet, I might add, looking new helmets to take on the Western Illinois Leathernecks. A fascinating fact about this series, the home team has yet to win a game. Will that stat stand again today? Good afternoon. And welcome to the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show. I'm Chris Berg along with Alex Egan, our analyst. DJ Coulter, who had a pretty good week last week. He called the rushing yards, close to the score. He was on fire.
I got called out at the NDSU basketball game, by the way. They said I was crazy for thinking DJ wouldn't go for 300. The Bison wouldn't go for 300 yards like DJ said, and somebody called me out for it. I hear you out there. I hear you.
Oh, DJ looks like a big-time wrestler over there. Also, our team at the Dome will be with us as well. But here's where we need to start today's show, is what everybody else was talking about this week, and you can see it right here. I absolutely love these. I love the way they look with my Tom Ford Versace taste, by the way. I think they look absolutely stunning. You say what?
I think they're great. I think it's a welcomed addition. Obviously, the guys will get fired up to play in them. I think, you know, anymore, I'm kind of a uniform connoisseur, if you will. I love different uniforms. I like how they look. The aesthetics are just fantastic. And, I mean, look at it on with the yellow jersey. It is perfect. A Gold Rush game. And, hey, by the way, the Bison have never lost in those gold uniforms.
That's true.
So maybe
they're at home, and boy, they're playing very, very well. So good to know that you are a jersey connoisseur.
The detailing, too, for the Harvest.
Yes.
It's just so fantastic. Very well done. Well thought out. Very well done.
I'm very excited to see how these guys show up, and it's going to give them a little bit of, I love what Coach Kleiman said during the week. You know, getting a new helmet like this, better than getting like a candy bar,
right,
you know, if you make a good play or something like that. So before we get into, obviously, today's game, tough matchup against Western Illinois. They got a QB that can spin it. We'll show you about that later. But first, let's talk about last week's game against Southern Illinois. These guys had a very explosive offense. The defense showed up to play.
Yeah, they picked up their second consecutive win on the road. This time they were using big plays, specifically in the running game. You see Easton's stick here. He was up over 100 yards rushing for the second straight week. But the real story, aside from Easton connecting with R.J. Erzendowski, get used to that, Bison fans. The big story is King Frazier, the junior running back, has his best game of the season by far. He rushes for 16 times for 177 yards, thanks to runs of 50 yards and 51 yards. Frazier also picking up a touchdown as well. Now, the Bison defense, they came up with some big stops, and they made the potent #1 Valley offense look average at best. Another complete team win for the Bison, as they improved to 6-2 overall and 4-1 in the Missouri
I want to
Valley.
touch on King Frazier real quick, because the thing I'm most excited about, and Beth Poole and I've talked about this, you know, since the beginning of the season, I'm tired of the running back by committee.
Yeah.
The guy can't get into a rhythm, and what the coaches are saying today is King Frazier is now the guy. I hope he comes out with the same fire today.
He is in the starting lineup. He is listed as the starter today, and honestly, I think as a football team, you need a feature back. I think that you need to have a guy that can, you know, get going a little bit. And the running backs for North Dakota State, let's be honest, there's four of them that could be starters at pretty much any other program that they're at. So the fact that it's kind of an embarrassment of riches, if you will, for the coaching staff, it's hard to decide which one to go with. But I think they pick King, they stay with King, and they get going. Let's take a look back up at the schedule for North Dakota State here. The Bison, they have just 3 games remaining, 2 of them in the friendly confines of the Fargo Dome. Although, Chris, with the loss to South Dakota a couple weeks ago, certainly any team thinks they can come into Fargo and walk out with a win. And as a programming
that's why I started the show saying, look, fascinating fact, the home team in this series has never won the game. I don't know if that's going to hold up today, but it's still a pretty interesting stat.
Yeah, and as a programming note, you can catch the rest of the Bison games right here on this station. You don't have to change it. You watch us, and then we get you to the game. It's
just
perfect.
Stay right where you're at. We're going to do the same thing today, walk you up to the famous Bison Walk, which is always gets you amped. Also, let's take a look at the Missouri Valley Conference standing, where they stand right now. One quick note, ginormous game starting in about 25 minutes. Illinois State at South Dakota State. If South Dakota State obviously can pull off the upset, this thing gets even murkier than it is already.
Look at that. It is just a mess. Look at all those 3-2, 2-3 teams. It is just a mess for these guys. Missouri State obviously has played themselves out of the playoffs at this point. Bison still have
playoffs.
To play. We'll talk about the playoffs. Let's not get crazy. But Missouri State still on the Bison schedule as well. So, I mean, North Dakota State sitting alone in second after the win last week. 4-1, not bad. As you said, Illinois State, they've got a tough test in Brookings, South Dakota today. It is going to be
But it depends what
difficult.
South Dakota State teams is going to show up. I mean, it's very rare you see the Bison fans obviously rooting for South Dakota State, but today they obviously are going to be doing that in football, but not all sports. There's another big game down in Brookings as well. But first, we'll talk about that later. We will talk about the playoff picture as well. DJ Coulter is going to break some of that down. But first, let's get out to our Northland Ford Dealers tailgate report with the one and only Mike Morgan. Mike?
All right, guys, thanks. We've scoured the entire tailgating area, and we've come to an extreme location here in the southwest area, and I'm here with Dustin Gustafson to tell us a little bit about your setup here.
Sure. Well, we have the Bison Wrangler in yellow.
Yep.
It also has the tailgate rated badge on the back, which is not Jeep standard, but it looks nice.
It does?
We've got the tent with the heater for the older people, my dad, my aunts, and of course burgers and brats and beer.
Now, getting in here is always at a premium. Was it tough to get this spot? And is this your spot that you try to get all the time?
Yeah, this is my spot I try to get. You know, you have to come early, you have to work hard, you have to put in the extra effort. But that's part of being a Bison fan, right? The team puts in the extra effort, the fans put in the extra effort, and that's what makes a champion.
Hey, who do we have here?
That's my youngest, Jordan.
Jordan, how are you?
Good.
Bison going to win today?
Yep.
You come here all the time?
Not all the time.
Not all the time, but it's a good day today, isn't it?
Yep.
All right. Can you say go Bison and get everybody else here fired up for the Bison?
Go Bison! Woo!
All right. And you know what? Part of this area is all about location, right? And they chose this location for an obvious reason. They know what they're doing. Back to you guys.
Oh, my gosh.
Location, location, location. It's important in anything that you do.
Mike
It's important
Morgan, very well done. All right, we have still plenty to come here on the show. Alex got a great piece on Jack Plankers, all the great things he's doing away from the football field in our community. Plus, we'll be breaking down Western Illinois, and we'll give you the latest on the injury information as well.
Yeah, but next we're going to get you back out to the Fargo Dome and hear from Bison head coach Chris Kleiman and get his thoughts before his team takes the field. Don't go anywhere. You're watching the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football pregame show.
Yeah, this is a special place. I'm super excited. Bison Nation, there's nobody better. The atmosphere that we have on Saturdays is unbelievable. So I can't wait. I'm crazy excited. I can't put it into words. I'm just really excited.
Their O-line plays really, really tough. I'm not afraid of anybody. They'll come at you trying to hit you in the mouth every single play. So, I mean, learning from last year, I mean, we just got to come out with a better attitude, I think.
Last year, coach said this week, DJ, very, very physical game. We'll see if that holds true again today. Welcome back to the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football pregame show. We're going to get you inside the film room in just a few moments. DJ, our man's going to be breaking down some interesting stuff. But first, let's get you back out to the Fargo Dome with our very own Beth Houle standing by to get some final thoughts from Bison head coach Chris Kleiman.
Hey guys, all right, Coach Kleiman, Western Illinois, you were real upfront about it early this week. Tough game last year. How do you prevent that same storyline this year?
Well, it's going to be a four-quarter game. We know that. They're a really physical team. They're extremely well coached. It's going to come down to game of execution and can we win our one-on-one matchup.
You guys were really high on King Frazier last week. How do you perform in practice this week answering that call?
Well, he did a nice job. He'll get, I would think, the majority of the carries today. He worked with the ones. You know, we'll sprinkle in the other guys and stuff. And Chase is going to be able to play, and so we're excited about that. But we've got to still be able to utilize all of our stable of running backs as well as Easton.
What's the big message to your guys as you guys take the field? Back at home, tough game here last time you were here. Do you address that at all?
No, we're just the last 3 weeks. Win each play, win each day, give yourself an opportunity, have great focus, and we've had really good weeks of practice. We just need to come out and execute. This is a good football team that we're pretty evenly matched in reality on things, so now it's going to come down to execution.
Thanks so much for your time, Coach. Guys?
Thank you, Beth. Great job. DJ, your thoughts on what Coach had to say?
Well, you got to remember, Western Illinois is a bubble team, and last year they held the Bison to 149 yards. So they're physical. I talked to a lot of coaches, players last year. They thought Western Illinois was the most physical team last year in the Missouri Valley.
I agree with that, and we just saw Nate Tangway talking about the same thing. You want me to show you my swim move real quick, or let me take you on, man? All right, let's take you inside the film room. All right, DJ, earlier in the season we were talking about obviously the vulnerabilities that a quarterback that could run, especially run the read option very well, was going to expose some weaknesses in the Bison defense. Past 2 weeks against Indiana State, Southern Illinois, they've done an outstanding job shutting down the offense and the quarterback. So I'm going to play for you today a play against University of Northern Iowa, or even Cole Morgan, guy that not the biggest Jets in the world, had a really nice play against NDSU. Then we'll show you a play against SIU. And the distinction DJ is going to break down for you is what's changed over the past few weeks to allow this defense to be as just unstoppable and that they've done to slow these guys down. So here's the play with obviously Cole Morgan first against UNI. If we can get the iPad here to run for you. As you can see here, big play with Mr. Cole Morgan, which, again, pretty good speed there, but not necessarily Jets.
Yeah, both safeties came up and just didn't make the play. Outside backers, I called out the outside backers and safeties a couple weeks ago. We'll see on this play here how much better they're playing. As you can see here, both outside, when Chris stops it right here, you can see the safety and the outside backers stepping into the play. And before, scheme-wise and personnel, remember NDSU is, in the last couple weeks, are playing some different players. Scheme-wise, you can tell it's been all the focus. They needed to focus on it. It's an awareness. They're getting off blocks. They're in the right place. And then all of a sudden they turn into a defense that's shutting down that quarterback run.
Offenses and doing an outstanding job. And they're going to need to do that again today because this Trent Norvell guy can sling it. They got a great running back, obviously, in Nico, and an outstanding wide receiver as well. So it's kind of that triple threat situation. We'll talk more about that later in the show. Also, Alex Deegan got an outstanding package talking about the Bison defense and some of the changes they've made to make them so effective the past couple weeks. And coming up next, great story about Jack Plankers, what he's doing to get out in the community and make a difference, obviously not just on the field, but outside the field and in our community as well. Stay with us, much more coming up right here on the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show.
Welcome back. Plenty of Bison get praised for their work on the football field, but sometimes we have to remember these are still college kids trying to figure out what they want to do with the rest of their lives.
Amen to that. One Bison player in particular spends his time reading mostly textbooks, obviously now for class, but whenever he gets a chance, he goes to reads to kids at his old school.
Yeah, I had the pleasure to talk with Jack Plankers and his parents and found out just how special a person he is.
And no birds ever sing, excepting old crows.
Jack has got a hunger to learn. I mean, anything he wants to do or figure out, he just will go get a book and read it.
I took the soft tuft and knitted a thneed.
And it's reading Jack Plankers wants to pass on to the future generation.
Because reading is, it really does help. It's a beneficial thing.
He loves kids. He does. He loves being with little kids. He loves interacting with them. He is a big kid. He gets that from his father.
Another thing Jack gets from his father, his competitiveness. Jack's dad, Roy, is a former athlete, and Jack has been trying to outdo his father since his days throwing shot put in high school.
And I threw at 54, 1 or 2.
But I threw 55, 11.
And it continues into college. Roy played football at Concordia in the late 1970s.
Like he won one national championship. We've got a few of them now.
No, he never lets me forget it. No. And then he has the rings. And at Concordia at the time, we got a watch. So he'll ask, as he's blinging around, he'll ask what time it is or something,
But it's away from the football field, in the schools, where Jack seems to make his biggest impact, reading to kids whenever he can. Because it doesn't matter if you're a 6'7", 321-pound offensive lineman for the 4-time national champions.
You're tall.
Or a 4th grader with dreams just like Jack had.
A book is a book, and everybody likes to read, and he just likes to have fun with them.
Giving back to the community like that is just one way of showing our appreciation. My name is Jack Plankers. I'm an offensive lineman, and I'm from Leonard, North Dakota.
For the Bison Football Show, I'm Alex Egan. Now you can catch more stories like this on the Bison Football Show with Chris Kleiman, airing Sunday mornings on KX4 here in the East and on NBC in the West. If you missed the live show, we'll re-air it Sunday nights on KVLY after the news, and we'll have it available online as well at valleynewslive.com. When we come back, we'll take a bigger look at the Leathernecks today. It's the Harvest Bowl, and you're watching the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show. Welcome back to the Farmers Union Insurance Bison football pregame show. Let's take a look now at the numbers for both squads. North Dakota State still holding a sizable advantage when it comes to scoring, over 11 points more than their competition. And the running game, the resurgence of the running game is a big reason why. The Bison have 640 rushing yards the last 2 weeks and 6 rushing touchdowns. And those numbers lead to the final number for the Bison, a whopping 36 minutes and 34 seconds average time of possession per game, still leading the nation in the category. For the Leathernecks, you can see why they are sitting at 500 on the season. They give up a lot of rushing yards per game, so look for the Bison to exploit it. But the Leathernecks can throw the football. Quarterback Trenton Norvell is completing over 55% of his passes. His big target is Lance Lenore. So it could be the Bison defensive backs who make the difference today. But the Leathernecks, they give up over 200 yards a game passing as well. Now let's go beyond the numbers. Beth Houle is standing by with more on the Leathernecks. Hey, Beth.
Thanks, guys. I'm joined by Scott Kortenberg with Western Illinois Radio here, talking about Western Illinois. They're coming in with 2 losses the last couple of weeks. How are they going rolling into this week?
Well, the last loss against Youngstown State certainly was one they really had to have. And for a team that wants to make the playoffs, these last 3 games starting today, they're crucial. So field position, which was big in last week's game, as well as sustaining long offensive drives, that's going to be the key in today's game against North Dakota State. Last
year, it was quite the chess match between these 2 teams. Western Illinois seemed to have NDSU's number up until the very end when the Bison answered. Can we expect a similar game? Is there enough familiarity still there?
I think so. I mean, these teams are pretty even on paper. North Dakota State obviously runs the football very, very well. And Western, for the most part, outside of 1 game this year, they've stopped the run fairly well this season. So that's going to be an interesting matchup to watch, as well as if Western's offense can sustain long drives. They had a lot of 3-and-outs last week against Youngstown State. And if they can at least move the ball before punting, at least around the midfield area, to give their defense a breather, because North Dakota State's so good at keeping the football. They're #1 in time of possession this year. That's going to be a key. Can you sustain long drives, get some points on the board, touchdowns instead of field goals? I think it's going to be a really close game today.
Well, thanks so much for your time. We appreciate you joining us, guys. Back to you.
All right, thank you very much, Beth. Let's welcome in the guys who will be on the call today, Brian, Sean, and Lee Timmerman, to get their thoughts on today's games. Hey, guys.
Guys, thanks so much. Brian, Sean, Lee Timmerman with you as we talk about some of the keys for Western Illinois, a team that has improved dramatically over the last couple of years, LT, but they also have the toughest schedule in the country. They've played games against Illinois. They went on the road at Coastal Carolina and lost a tough game. And despite the losses the last couple of weeks, are still one of those teams that can be kind of dangerous here in November.
Well, Western coach Bob Nielsen is saying, hey, we'll look at strength of schedule if we can get ourselves into a position to maybe start splitting hairs a little bit when it comes to the playoff. But, of course, they have to get there, and coming into today, they're 4-4.
Running the football has been an issue the last couple of weeks, and when they were going good, running the football was really the key. Again, they're no huddle, they spread it out a little bit, but Nico Watson, a guy they really have to establish early, or that changes the game plan for them offensively.
Yeah, Nico goes listed 250. He might be bigger than that, but unless the guys up front are making some moves and making a few extra blocks for the big guy, they're not going to quite gain those yards on the ground. Norvell's not the type of runner that we've seen from the Bison quarterbacks the last couple of weeks, so he's not a run-first type of a quarterback. So, yeah, they'll need Watson to get going, but they'll need their offensive line to establish itself sometime during the game today.
And Lenore, one of those wide receivers to watch out for today as well, one of the top receivers in the country. Defensively, young in the secondary, 2 sophomores, 2 freshmen, talented guys that have been able to turn the football over at times, but their strength really seems to be in their defensive front, in particular in their tackle positions.
And I think the interesting thing about the way the defense is set up is that it's very similar to what NDSU does structurally. So the Bison offense is going to go against a defense that looks like something they've practiced against a bunch. And Bison, with these 3-4 types of things that it seems like the Bison run into a lot, that they haven't seen a lot of that. So at least that part I think is a little bit interesting. But I think if the Bison can keep gaining those first downs, wear down those big defensive tackles that are the strength of the defense, I think come fourth quarter time, that's when the Bison offensive line has really shined the last couple of weeks.
Should be a physical matchup between 2 teams that are still playing for very much here in November. Back to you.
Thank you, gentlemen. I'm excited, EJ. Physical football game. I love to see those. But you heard the guys right there just talk about the strength of Western Illinois' schedule, the toughest schedule in the country in all of FCS. Let's take a look at who they've played so far this year, and obviously the scores of those games. Against Illinois, they got blanked, which I was kind of stunned by, DJ, with knowing these guys got a pretty good offense. But then a couple of games that jump out. Coastal Carolina, that's when Coastal Carolina was #1 in the nation. They barely lost a game. Then they went into the Unidome and picked up a W. That's a tough place to win football games.
Yeah, Coastal Carolina, talking to people from Western Illinois, they thought they had that game won. That's a big win at Northern Iowa. Illinois State's a good team, so, I won't take that. Last week just hurt them for their playoff chances. Lose to Youngstown like that.
Which I think, if you look at that schedule, makes today's game that much more of a threat, one of those kind of sleeper games, if you will, because rarely does a team lose 3 in a row. And again, I remind people, the home team has never won in this series. So you can see a team today in Western Illinois coming out very hungry. They're going to do whatever it takes to win because their playoff lives are on the line. Let's take a look at this football program itself. We talked about this earlier in the show, but they've got kind of a really good triple threat. They got a quarterback that can spin it very, very well. They got a stud wide receiver. You heard the guys talk about right there. And kind of, how much do you weigh?
275 pounds.
There you go. I mean, you're like a Nico Watson coming downhill, just blasting linebackers. What I'm excited to see is can Nick DeLuca, who's 240, stand up to a DJ Coulter coming downhill on him.
Yeah, and it's, when you look at Western Illinois, they have a quarterback that can run and throw. They also have this wide receiver. He's a preseason All-American. He has a ton of their records. So, for them to win this game, for Western Illinois to win this game, they need to convert on 3rd down. I think they need to throw for over 250 to win.
Well, we're going to show how this guy could spin it right now. Watch this play right here, if you will. Let's bring this up full screen, please. But here's Trenton Norvell. Great layout catch right here. But watch Trenton right here. This is a touchdown pass he's about to throw. Just a flick of the wrist. That's 50 yards. Boom, right on the money. And then we just talked about DJ Coulter going downhill off the QB read option. There he is, Nico Watson for 6. And as we all know, the running quarterback has been a big threat this year to the NDSU Bison defense. Here's their quarterback off that QB read option for a very, very nice gain. Final thoughts, sir.
The great thing for NDSU is they've cleaned that up the last 2 weeks. I expect that today. Again, I think Western's going to have to throw the ball to beat the Bison.
All right, stay with us when we come back. We're going to tell you who's in and who's out in our Sanford injury report. Stay with us. Much more coming up on the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show.
The players are out getting ready for the 41st Harvest Bowl, celebrating excellence in agriculture, education, and athletics. Welcome back to the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show. We are 8 games into the schedule, just 3 remain, including today in the regular season. So injuries are already starting to take their toll. Let's go out to Beth, standing by with our Sanford Orthopedic Sports Medicine Injury Report. Hey, Beth.
Hey guys, here for your Sanford Orthopedic and Sports Medicine Injury Report, joined by Dr. Noonan this week. Have some questions about some of those reoccurring injuries, things like sprained ankles, things like pulled muscles. How easy is it once you've had that injury to sustain it again?
Well, it's pretty easy. I think probably a better word than recurrent is just prolonged. We're really careful not to let our athletes get back out there too soon to re-injure the same thing or just make the same injury last longer. So you're definitely at a heightened risk of re-injuring it or just prolonging it if you get out there, especially too early.
Is it then more difficult to heal if it becomes a prolonged injury?
I would say absolutely. We always try to walk the line, and our athletic trainers are crucial in that, in getting our athletes back, watching them practice, and letting us know kind of where they're at in the recovery phase. So absolutely you don't want to try to push it too quickly.
Is there ever anything, we live in a day and age of wanting that quick fix. Is there anything that you can do to speed along some of those recoveries, or is it really, the old Sanders rest, ice, and elevation?
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the majority of it, and it kind of depends on how severe the injury was originally. And in some of these, if we're not sure, we rely on our radiology department to help us get these athletes in really quickly and image them to make sure that's all it is a little ding. And then oftentimes you're just at the mercy of the athlete getting better on their own.
Well, thanks so much for your time, Dr. Noonan. Always a team effort, we learned here this week in our Sanford Orthopedic and Sports Medicine Injury Report.
All right, thank you very much, Beth, and thank you, Dr. Noonan. Let's take a look at the injury report today. Everyone should be available for the Bison this week. Chase Morlock, he hurt his ankle late in the game against Southern Illinois. It's the same ankle he's been bothered with earlier in the season, but he is expected to play just on a limited basis. Trey Dempsey left last week's game with a concussion, but he has been participating in practice all week and should be good to go today. And Andrew Bonnet, we just found out, has been dealing with a bone bruise for the last several weeks. Tim Polasek saying the bone bruise would sideline most players, but he called Bonnet, quote, a tough son of a gun. That's coach speak for you right there. All right, let's go back out to the Dome. Mike Morkin has found his way back to the tailgate lot, and he has this Northland Ford Dealers tailgate report. Mike?
All right, thanks, guys. You know, I've been out here in the tailgating area for several years now, and every once in a while you run into something new that you haven't seen before. And I'm with Brian Keel right now. And Brian, it's quite a setup. Tell me about it.
Well, basically, we're with a company called West Central Distribution. We sell to ag retailers throughout 23 states. We're based out of Willmar, Minnesota. We have our northern region office here in Fargo, North Dakota. And a group of us get together and we use what we call our technology trailer that we use for ag shows, that sort of thing, where we show off some of the science behind the products that we have. But for this event, it's a tailgating trailer.
All right, let's go inside so we can take a look and see what we've got in here and how you've been able to adapt this work vehicle into something for a little bit more fun. So, Brian, what do we have here?
So what we've got inside of here is we've got a lot of beverages and a lot of food. We're serving some prime rib a little bit later. We've got all the fixings to go with it. And now what you're about to see is what we call our beverage delivery system. And basically when this fills up inside of here with a lot of people, it's hard to get beverages from one side to the other. Okay. So we've come up with this beverage delivery system. I think he's going to demonstrate it right now.
Okay. Oh, so I've got a beverage for me. And I get a Coca-Cola? That's what I get as a Coca-Cola. Okay.
Always Coca-Cola.
Okay. All right. Okay. Product placement. I like the concept, and maybe I'll stop back later after work, and we'll see over the prime rib. All right. Thanks so much. We'll send it back to you. They're getting ready for the big game.
All right, thanks, Mike. I think that's one of the better rigs we've seen out there. In Bison Nation, they know how to tailgate right. When we come back, the defense for North Dakota State has been playing at an extremely high level. We'll see what's working for Code Green next.
Welcome back to the Farmers Union Insurance Bison football pregame show. Well, the Bison offense is the only part of the team that has really turned things around following the loss to South Dakota. The Bison defense has really shut down two very potent offenses the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, we got a chance to talk with some of the guys on Code Green, and we found out just what is inspiring their excellent play the last couple weeks.
Nobody wants to be the team that is the letdown.
Fear is a strong motivator. Now, the Bison defense isn't playing in fear. Instead, they're playing with emotion, something they picked up by going back and looking at film of the Bison over the last 4 years.
Everybody got so excited about things, and that's the one thing, those 2 games where we didn't play so well, we didn't have. And then all of a sudden we jump back into it. Everybody gets excited to play. Everybody gets excited about a big hit.
The Bison defense had a 2-week stretch where opposing offenses seemingly could do no wrong. Against Northern Iowa, the Bison escaped with a win. Against South Dakota, the Bison weren't so lucky. But now Code Green is back with 2 dominating road performances, and they say it's because they have regained their confidence.
I never really questioned it. I just knew it would take time. We've gained a lot of comfort in each other's play, and we've built off each other, and I think, yeah, it was just a matter of time.
And a major part of the reason why the defense has been able to regain their confidence has been the consistency in the coaching staff and what they are preaching to their players.
I think the message has always been kind of win the play, win the day, don't look too far ahead, just live in the now and work in what we're doing right now. But I think that's kind of been the whole thing, but we've definitely, taken it up a notch, and it's been more emphasized.
The loss to South Dakota was a shock to the fans, the coaches, and the players. And it served as a wake-up call to the defense.
I guess we needed it, but it's one of those things, the team shouldn't need that. But since we're a young team, we had it happen to us, and it's one of those things we'll never let it happen again.
Because fear is a strong motivator.
We just don't want to disappoint all the past Bison that have played and, be the team that's just the letdown.
They certainly do not want to be the team that will be the letdown. One more break, and then we'll get you out to the Dome. So refresh the snacks and the beverages now. We are minutes away from North Dakota State and Western Illinois on the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football pregame show. Harvest Bowl getting ready to get set. The new helmets, the Gold Rush uniforms. NDSU has never lost in the gold uniforms. The home team has never won in the Western Illinois NDSU series. Welcome back inside the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football pregame show. We are going to get you set to get out to the Dome for kickoff between North Dakota State and Western Illinois. No need to change the channel either. We got you covered here right on this station. Brian Shawn, Lee Timmerman, and Beth Hool will be out at the Fargo Dome. We are just minutes away from handing it off to our crew. And before we get into today's matchup, there are several playoff implications on the line as we wind down the regular season. Now, DJ.
And guys, I want to just give you some breaking news here as you do this.
Please.
In Brookings.
Yes.
A couple minutes left to go in the first half. We have got South Dakota 17, Illinois State 14.
South Dakota State.
It's on its way. South Dakota State is on its way. So we'll see. It's still first half.
And that's important, DJ. You've given us a list of who you think will be in the. You get those first round buys in the FCS.
Yeah, people got to remember right now. I know they've been worried about possibly NDSU losing probably 2 non-playoff teams, but the NCAA needs money. It's a business too. So when you look at there's been some of the powerhouses that are not in it. One note here. And people, I don't want you texting me, giving me a bunch of garbage about not having Coastal Carolina. They just lost a big game last week to Charleston Southern. And they got to be careful here because they lose one more game. They could go from number 2 in the nation to not being in the top 8, or maybe not even making the playoffs because I don't see 3 coming out of that. But, there's different teams here when you look at it. A lot of teams like Eastern Kentucky, Sam Houston, Eastern Illinois, Northern Iowa's on that bubble. Their team, I think the Missouri Valley is going to get 4 teams in it, and they should.
So what you're saying is it's a giant mess, and we have no idea what we're actually going to see
every week.
3 weeks from now.
Every week it's going to get clear. Remember, those can change. Don't hold me to that 3 weeks from now.
And real quick, I got to correct myself. I had the wrong score. It's 7-0 Illinois State over South Dakota State. I had my hopes up, but I accidentally had the wrong score in hand.
Thanks
so
for
just a quick
us
correction.
Bad information.
I know. I was excited, and I was like, okay,
But from Brookings, though, I did want to tell you, NDSU football playing today, obviously, in Fargo, but NDSU soccer, the other football, we're going for a Summit League championship. Unfortunately, South Dakota State won the game 3-0, but a good season for the NDSU women's soccer team. 13-6-1 overall, the most wins since 2011. Congratulations to those girls. And South Dakota State is the Summit League champions. All right, let's get into today's game. Let's go out to the Dome. I believe Beth Hool is ready and standing by with her thoughts. Beth, what do you have for us?
Hey guys, well first of all, I have to give a big shout out to our friends out in Bismarck. Joel has a party that tunes in every single week to check us out. I want to say hi to Joel and all of his friends out in Bismarck. We appreciate you guys tuning in and all your support this season. This weekend, it's going to be a tough one for NDSU. Coach Kleiman talking about how this isn't going to be the same game they saw last year. He said it earlier in the pregame show when I had a chance to talk to him. And when I talked to Coach Polasek this week, he agreed. And he said the big difference is this year, they're going to make sure this is a player's game. The coaches are going to stay out of it as much as possible. That means they're going to put them in the best position. They're going to take what they can get, and they're going to let the players decide this game, doing what they do best. Now, that's obviously been running the football with Easton Stick as quarterback. If they're going to look for those passing opportunities, because Western Illinois should present a couple of those, but if they can run the ball all day long, that's what this Bison offense is going to do. It's going to be a tough one. They're expecting a physical football game from Western Illinois, but there's nothing more these Bison would like. They'd love to run this Western Illinois team into the ground and just bury them late in the second half. Guys?
All right, thank you very much, Beth. I think she touched on a few really good points there. Easton Stick has been super effective running the football, and it's been quite a treat, actually, to watch him operate in this offense. Let's get into my keys for today, and it's pretty simple. Play a clean game. Now, the last game that the Bison have played without a turnover was way back against North Dakota. It seems like a lifetime ago. So they got to play a clean game today. No careless penalties. The Bison have taken some silly penalties on defense the last couple of weeks, and some of them have cost them. You don't want to tell the defense to play scared, but they do need to play smart. That's important. And no jitters for Stick. We forget. I mean, we might forget. I certainly kind of forgot as I was going over my prep for this game. It's his first start at the Fargo Dome. So can he handle the pressure and playing in front of a packed house? It's easy to play when nobody's watching you. And that was the case at Indiana State and Southern Illinois. It's easy to play when nobody's there. But these Bison fans are hungry for a win because the last time they came to the Fargo Dome, they left angry. DJ, your keys for today's game?
Yeah, you got to remember last year that Western Illinois held Mr. Crockett, who's in the NFL right now, to 79 yards. They were physical. We need NDSU's O-line to come out and just set what they've been doing the last couple weeks. Number 2, Lenore is a preseason All-American receiver. He has a ton of their records. You know, we need CJ to handcuff him, not let him get going. And like I've said the last week, and I'll say it again this week, when NDSU gets that run game, when they get that offense focused on the running backs and get to that over 300 yards, they are going to be hard to beat from this point on.
I'll admit, I thought you were crazy last week for making such a bold prediction. It turns out you were spot on with the rushing numbers the last two weeks. So anything you say, I will take as law, and it works.
The sun shines on everything once in a while.
Chris, your keys for today.
You know the old movie, Run, Forrest, Run. Today we've got Run, Frazier, Run. I'd like to see NDSU run the rock about 50 times today. I'll tell you this, if Frazier gets 20 rushes today, they will win this football game. He has to be above 15. I'd like to see him around 20. No turnovers. Western Illinois, they actually lead the conference in turnovers this year. They're very good at getting the ball back in their hands. So obviously it's a key that we hold on to the football. And boy, oh boy, Dome, sweet Dome, it's nice to be home.
A 26-game losing streak, or 26-game winning streak, excuse me, snap the last time the Bison were at home. So you'd like to see a new winning streak start and make it 27. How about that? That'd be pretty nice if the Bison can get their 27-game winning streak started today against Western Illinois. Let's take a look at this week's Bobcat heavy lifting report. And we had to go with the Bison secondary. I mean, they need to limit Western's leading receiver. That's Lance Lenore. You talked about him there, DJ. He's got 51 catches this season for 746 yards. That's crazy. Those are really good numbers this far into the season. Trenton Norvell is completing 55% of his passes. So this secondary needs to make sure he isn't connecting with his receivers. And, oh, yeah, Trey Dempsey, he left last week's game with a concussion. Yeah. They say he's going to go. But if he can't, these guys need to make up for his absence if he's still feeling some of those effects. And they need to do a good job of forcing turnovers.
Well, and I think the key to that is these guys obviously being aware, but also the front four. They're going to have to put pressure on Norvell, because if you give this guy time, he can spin it. But if you put some pressure on him early, get inside his head like they did against South Dakota State, you're going to, because he's got 7 picks. If we can bring up his quarterback comparison chart, please. This guy's got 7 picks. So if you put him in some bad positions, he will make bad decisions. Let's go to our QB comparison chart, please. So that's one thing that we've got to be sure that we do is get some pressure on him very, very early. You can see him there. But he's also got Lance Lenore. If this guy gets open, he'll spin it and put it in his hands. So it should be an exciting game. We've heard all week, guys, about the physicality of this game. It's going to be a great one.
Let's take a look at Easton Stick's numbers, too, real quickly before we get you out to the Dome for the game. Stick, obviously, he hasn't thrown the ball too much. You know, he's only completed 21 passes, but it's the number that's the most important isn't on that. He's 2-0 in games that he's started. That's it for the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football pregame show. We're going to get you out to the Dome. The tunnel walk is next, and then kickoff, we'll hand it off to our guys, Sean, LT, and Beth Hool. Thanks for watching.